Hi there, I'm Holly Sin, and welcome to HeartMind Live. This is a live recording of a HeartMind theory talk. It's a transforming process. So we're trauma transforming. Yes, it takes sensitivity. Yes, it takes awareness, but we're really geared towards the goal of transforming the trauma with yoga and with breath work. Many people feel like their mind is working against them, or their mind and their body are working against each other. They have racing thoughts, anxiety, sleepless nights, and then their body is in a lot of fatigue and pain. There's burnout, exhaustion, like this is the way of the world at this point. And like I said, a lot of body pain, chronic fatigue in women is just on the rise. We can put fibromyalgia in that as well, which they often go together. And that's something I've worked with a lot as well with women. And feeling like you've lost joy or passion or purpose for your life. And then you feel victim to triggers of the past, especially with trauma, or intruding thoughts even of the future, intruding anxiety-driven thoughts. So what is this system? What is the heart mind? This is a somatic chakra and meridian systematic pathway that brings the mind back into the body with the heart as the center of both the body and the mind. So I'll talk about this a little bit more. Sometimes I talk about the solar plexus, Manipura, if you know the chakra system, the upper core being the physical center, but it really supports and is right underneath the heart. So the heart is that spiritual center together. The small intestines and the heart are working together at the center of our being. And this uses body awareness, movement, breath work, and it's going to give you embodied tools to shift mental patterns. It shows you how to trust this system. It's going to make a lot of sense as you feel it. And this is the asset given to you as a birthright to process your life, okay? And it gives you this method to feel, digest, and transform or metabolize mental material. This is what is causing illness is the accumulation of mental material and unable to process that or digest that. It happens when we see physical illness, when we're not able to digest certain nutrients, sugars, or able to digest food, and it accumulates. It causes digestive issues, and we all know this can create a lot of unhealthiness, both physically but also mentally. The same true is for our mental digestion. And then there's a lack of spiritual connection when that happens as well. Yoga is the mental spiritual connection above all else. And the body is a lot more used in the medical system in India, Ayurveda. We do use the body, but more as force and energy, rather than trying to change it biologically or heal it with ingesting substances, for example. I started using this heart mind and calling it HeartMind Method because we're really taught that the mind is in the head. And I even do this, right? Like I point to my head when I'm talking about the mind. And we're taught to hold it all together and kind of try to rationalize through, push through emotions, don't listen to emotions, so we can function. And then life becomes really overwhelming and thoughts turn into it. High anxiety, which turns to burnout. And again, we start to hurt in our bodies. And then we have the recoil effect of needing to numb out, not having a pathway to actually process those emotions. So there's no time to digest what we feel. So we keep moving like a robot through until we just break down. And that's usually when I end up meeting people, not always. Sometimes it's preventative, but a lot of times I'm meeting people in that kind of, they've exhausted that pathway of how they were taught in a productive society to keep moving, and they need a new way. What are chakras and meridians? Now, I've been tossing around this word, and maybe you know it, maybe you don't. Maybe there's this inkling of knowing kind of what it is. Maybe you've studied them at length. But the way that I talk about it is that a chakra is a place in your body where your psychology collects, your psyche collects certain vibrational meanings to your life and how to live your life. And yoga often is seen as physical, obviously, in our culture, but it really is where our psychology and spiritual pathway lies. And it deals much more with the going towards our mind being prepared for spiritual connection. It's really focused on the mind and having us feel connection with spirit, nature, however you want to say that. Chakras are coming from that yoga lineage, whereas meridians are coming from TCM or traditional Chinese medicine. And I use those pathways because they're much more codified, easier to work with. Yoga does have those pathways, but they're much more complex. So that's why I mix the two. And this has been a huge part of my learning, as well as my contribution to yoga therapy, mixing these elements and centers and pathways to start to shift our mind and live more in our bodies. So what I see traditionally, and I get this a little bit from Anodea Judith, who is a scholar in the chakras, but I apply it to both chakras and meridians, is I see either depletion or excess. And this is a dynamic system. So it's not just one or the other. You could be vacillating between the two, where you have too much energy or not enough energy in a chakra. I very rarely use the word a stuck chakra. Just going to let you know that. It's more about how dynamically the energy is flowing. I want you to know that for a decade now, I've been harnessing this method, and I've been working with 100 plus women. I work primarily with doctors and psychiatrists, and then also with healers and entrepreneurs that are in that healing world. And we deepen their yoga and their breath and start to shift their mind so they're more present for themselves and for their clientele or students. And I have seen this method transform their lives at the root level. Sometimes that does require obviously other healthcare support, medication, these types of things, but we're starting to change it also at the root level of the mind. And in my experience, there's no better way to invite real grounded transformation and empower your body with life than to go to these centers, bring your energy home to these centers and spread it through the limbs and collect it from the limbs. So this is the HeartMind system. Here is one psychiatrist. She is a head of a hospital here at her community, Hannah Lake. And she says, I've been working with Holly for 2 years now. This year is actually going into 3. She wrote this a year ago. I consider it to be fundamental to my understanding of myself and my well-being. She challenges in a way that is transformative and gentle. There's that word transformative. That's important. So what we do is we create a home in each chakra. And there's a system that I follow. So the first part of the system is creating that foundation. Every great home needs that foundation, and it's accountability, showing up with sincerity and receptivity. The Yoga Sutras, an ancient text, talks about this, and it's the very first sutra, just like the foundation is the very first thing we have to set, right, in a home. And it says, Atta Yoga Nushasanam. It's okay if you don't like Sanskrit, or if it sounds like googly glop to you, that's okay. But what it's saying is now when we show up with this type of sincerity and ability to receive information, being open to receiving information, now transformation can take place. And so that is fundamental, and it is the base. Then we work with 4 major pillars, and think of these like the walls of your home. Boundaries, huge, very earthy element. Emotional intelligence, trusting and building intelligence around our emotions. This is a very watery and sometimes airy experience. Forgiveness. This is key. It's a healing elixir for the wounds that we've been collecting. And lastly, acknowledgement. This is a huge, powerful practice that I've seen and developed over especially the last couple of years, really start to shift women into really stepping into their light. And that's the whole point, is to step into that acknowledgement of yourself. And then there's the shelter or the roof of our home. And this is a mixture of faith and trust. There's this beautiful word in Sanskrit called shraddha. It's one of my favorites. Shraddha. And it mixes faith and trust. So it's an optimistic knowing that I trust the system and know that the system is going to grow me and transform me. There has to be that sense of faith. And, all great religions talk about faith, and it's not a religion, but a spiritual process requires faith. And it's not necessarily how Exactly. You might not always understand the how, but there's this faith that if I show up, if I contribute to these pillars, then I can also create a shelter for myself, knowing that I'm on my path. I just want to share a few stories of people that are in the program actually right now and about to finish up. This is a case study. So Liz suffered from chronic childhood trauma. She's a psychiatrist, and she came to me back in 2020. And here are a few milestones that we've gone through in our work together. She's found more independence with her adult children. She was a single mom, and she has been able to build more boundaries and more independence for both her and her children. She has found a partner. She never thought she would do that again, and she has. But the most important thing, I think, was in a recent session, even going through all of the trauma that she has gone through, we landed in this place where she really wants to be her. And she said, she's probably never said that in her life, but we didn't even see that until after the fact, and she said it, and we were able to break that down and really receive that. I want to be me. And imagine yourself like really, really owning that on every cellular level. I want to be me. With all of my past, with all of my future ahead of me, I want to be me, whatever age that is. It's pretty powerful. Kate is in the group as well, and I've been working with Kate in this first round of Reclaim Heart Mind group. She has a spinal condition and was told by doctors never to do yoga. We kind of had a chat. She liked what I was talking about. She was hesitant, but I told her we could find modifications, we can find what she needs, and she's completely transformed her relationship with her condition. She's transformed what she knows yoga to be. She's one of the ones where I can support different variations of what we did today, for example. And now she's doing my yoga training in yoga somatics. So she's so transfixed and transformed by yoga. She wants to train and offer that to others. She's a breathwork practitioner, a healer herself. So she's adding this to her repertoire. Both of those, by the way, videos can be found on my Instagram. So the Reclaim Your Heart Mind program, it's a guided chakra by chakra journey to build that home. And we walk through the foundation, the pillars, and the shelter of each center. There's morning routines and evening routines, short, so they're not going to take up a lot of your day, but they're very potent rituals. And that's one of the things that we need to do, is start to create ritual touch points for your mind to come into these centers and spread through the meridians. There's also weekly live calls with somatic and breath practices related to chakras and real-time support. So we work for at least half of the session with real things that are coming up in people's bodies in group. And there's a community portal where we post, you're prompted to post, you're prompted to be accountable, and there's a clear structure for both the course and prompts to engage. One of the biggest healings I find is vulnerability. And I feel like this is also part of that pillar of forgiveness and emotional intelligence. Being vulnerable enough to share these things in a group with other women can be extremely powerful. I know for myself that shifted a lot. I know, for example, just one example is going back to Liz, that has shifted things for her with that chronic childhood trauma. And who it's for, if you've experienced trauma in your life, if you've experienced, whether it's, we don't have to compare trauma, but if you know that there's stuck memories and the sense of being burdened by the past, then there's probably trauma there. And some of the symptoms of this is anxious, you're burning out because there's a certain way that you're dealing and holding that's no longer serving you. You're getting stuck in your head, intrusive thoughts, those types of things we talked about at the beginning. And you're ready to heal these patterns, but more importantly, transform them. You really want to move the needle. This is a body-based approach, not just mindset work. And it's putting, again, the mind in the body. You're willing to show up and practice, even imperfectly. Just like my slide here is a bit imperfect. All right, so the results I've seen with this work you're going to have much more emotional resilience. At first, kind of Pandora's box is open and you feel a little less resilient, but it actually builds more resiliency. Think of a really tight muscle. As we start to hydrate it and let the emotions move, it can feel a little bit wobbly at first, but it starts to get more supple. And that's what we're looking for, resilience, suppleness. You'll get better sleep, calmer nervous system, and deeper rest. Now, of course, things happen, and that's one of the things that we're working with. When something comes and knocks you down, it doesn't mean that the system and the program doesn't work. It means now you have the tools to recover, and that's what we're building, tools to work with when we're knocked down or when we wobble. Clearer boundaries in your relationships and more trust in yourself around the relationships. That's huge. And you're feeling safer in your body, feeling safe to bring consciousness into the body, and that's where you're going to find what we call ananda, that real joy and bliss and peace. That's, in quotes, happiness. So you're going to start to feel that. It's an 8-week program. So what you're receiving is, again, those live group sessions. There's 3 options weekly. So usually people try to make 1. And every group, I take a survey. I survey what times work best for the group. You'll have replays of all of the sessions, so you could get supported by those and go back to a chakra if you need to one day. Weekly guided practices for this habit, the rituals I was talking about, morning and evening practices. And then another great bonus here is I'm going to include 2 months of classes. This is yoga classes, which are both structural classes as well as metaphysical seasonal classes for, again, the chakras and the meridians, as well as a HeartMind Yoga Nidra classes throughout the week. So I'm going to include those as part of this next cohort. If you're in, start with me with a free 20-minute conversation. It's usually about 15. If we need 20, we allot for 20. And we can feel into this together, how this is feeling for you and how we can start supporting you right away to shift what's happening. Travel well, enjoy your prana, enjoy your life force. I bow to you and namaste.